Alright, Joe Walker here. It is July 1st, a little bit before 8 o'clock, and I'm super excited for today. Why? Because it's a brand new day, and we get to do what we love, which is tend the land, take care of these animals, produce some highly nutrient-dense food for our customers and for my family. But I am here at the Stovall house. I have a couple of orders came in last night, so we're going to get these dropped off on the porch, and we're just going to bring the phone along, bring the camera along, and got a lot going on today, so really just want to bring y'all along and talk about what's happening. Let me pause this, get these orders set out, and we'll be back. Alright, so what's happening today? What has happened already? What do we got going on? So thus far today, we've got Holly loaded up. Holly's taking deliveries down to Swanee, and we got a good bit to do. So we got her loaded up this morning. She still had a few more eggs to get done on the pre-sales. And now we are at the Stovall house, and so today we got to move the cows and move the chickens here at the Stovall house, and it's getting kind of difficult to maintain constant access to a patch of shade for the cows, and we run into that. I mean, it happens, and it kind of forces us to run them back to a spot longer than we would like, but that's okay. So this particular paddock here, they actually had a section of that gamma grass, and they're going to get probably the rest of it today. But so what happens? Shade is limited, and we got to move them. We got to keep them moving, but they also have to have access to shade. And at the same time, we don't want to give them too much time with access to the same shade spot. But you got to do what you got to do. I mean, it's kind of impossible not to in our situation without a movable shade structure, which those do exist. People use them. I think Salatin uses one, and they're expensive, difficult to build, and then it's one more thing you got to move. Would we love to implement that? Yeah, and maybe one day we will, but for right now, what we're doing is we just use the natural cover to get them back to the shade. So as you see, the cows are in it right now. They do tend to wear it out, but that's just the world we live in right now, and we're basically just doing the best we can with what we have. So they'll continue to wear this out for a couple more days so that I can utilize the rest of this upper pasture. And honestly, we probably got, another 5 days worth of forage here, but we'll probably only get about 2, maybe 3 more days, just simply because I don't want to just tear this up any more than it already is. So the next paddock after they finish this upper pasture, they're going to be going right through this gate, and then they'll have this whole tree line, so we'll be able to run paddocks this way and into that tree line and give them a fresh spot of shade every move. But this particular paddock, this particular pasture, this is what we got to deal with. So we're essentially just going to do a bump out. So instead of completely moving them to a fresh paddock, because like I said, they got to have access to the shade, I'm just going to take their front fence and spool it out. So just basically stretch it out, which makes for a lot easier of a move. Just less work to do, but not necessarily ideal, but that's just how we're going to handle it today. So I'm going to get that done, and then we'll move on to the birds. I remember talking to an old friend of mine, a retired dairy farmer, and we were talking about forages. He was a pretty conventional guy, but we were talking about forages, and I was asking him about clover. How come more people don't plant clover or at least promote clover in their pastures? And he told me because it doesn't regenerate fast enough. And he's absolutely right in an open graze scenario. So if you're just, or even in a rotational graze scenario, if the cattle are just being moved a couple of times a year, then they're going to overgraze the clover, and any amount of regrowth is going to get nipped off immediately. But when you move them daily, or at least a couple of times a week, you give that clover plenty of time to recuperate. So this is where I'm standing now. The cows are down there. Now they hit this clover, like this is the first thing they hit. When I turn them into a new paddock, they're going after this clover because it is so nutritious. I mean, they know what they need, and there's a lot of protein and a lot of nutrients in this clover. Well, they've been off of it, so we moved them off of it, so now it has a chance to recuperate, and they won't come back on this for even during the quickest rotation, so which is during the spring. The fastest they would come back on this is 30 days, and it's usually more about 45 days or so. So that's ample time for all of this red clover and this white clover to regenerate. And that's just another reason I believe this is a far superior system. So we take advantage of all these forbs, and they have plenty of time to regenerate. So just my thoughts. Thanks. The term pasture-raised, quote, pasture-raised, is not regulated by the government. And honestly, I don't think it should be. Honestly, it should be, it's on the consumer. I mean, bottom line, anytime the government regulates something, just like they did with organic, the term organic, they just ruin it. Everything is, that we imply when we think of the word organic, well, that's just not the case, and so that's why I don't think the term pasture-raised should be regulated, because then the American consumer is just going to put trust into that. Unfortunately, the American consumer just puts trust into labels, and that's why you'll see, so much stuff labeled pasture-raised, or you'll have so many farmers, claiming their stuff is pasture-raised. Well, without the definition of pasture-raised, like being regulated, the only way to truly know is if you ask the questions. So the consumer has to basically educate themselves, because there's a tremendous amount of deception out there in the food industry, and even if it's not deception, so say there isn't deception, right? Say it's just like, people have these misinterpretations. So, like somebody else's idea of pasture might not be the same as mine. You know, some people are like, oh, well, it's pasture raised, it's on a dirt lot, you know, there ain't a bit of grass out there. And they'll consider that pasture raised. Well, you know, that's why it's important for the consumer to know, and that's like a law to know their farmer, and that's why, you know, one of the main reasons we shoot these videos, or one of the main driving factors for me to shoot these videos, is for transparency. I want people to see where their food comes from, and you know, and just to somewhat educate the consumer, because there's, you know, like for instance, hold on a second. You know, for instance, we typically like to move the birds into a new paddock every 3 days. Well, that hasn't been the case at this particular farm here lately. And right here, I'm walking into their old paddock. So now, granted, they haven't been in here that long, but look at what's happening. So, do you know, if I left them, if I continued to leave them in here, I mean, you see all these bare spots? If I continue to leave them in the paddock, now, not all of them have moved through. That's why, you know, that's why it's not. But this is basically, that's, you know, why there's still birds over here. Once they all get through over there, I'll seal that off. But if I were to leave these birds in this paddock for, let's say, months at a time, it's going to be moonscaped. I mean, there's already, like, I can walk through here. I don't know if it'll pick it up on the camera, but I can walk through here and there's virtually no bugs. I mean, I don't see any grasshoppers. But as we get up here, let's see if it'll pick it up. As we get up here to their new paddock, which starts about right where that solar charger is right there. So now we're getting into the new paddock, and the grasshoppers are just literally, I'm gonna put the phone, I'm gonna see if I can get the phone close. Now, I'm not sure if that showed up. I'll see when I load it on the computer and get ready to post it. But yeah, I mean, there's every step I took, there was just, you know, tremendous amounts of grasshoppers, all types of other insects, just floating. You know, they just explode with every step. So, and these birds have been in this paddock, you know, longer than expected, but it doesn't take them long to literally just assassinate. I mean, these guys are hunters, you know, they go after it. If there's movement, they are on it, and it doesn't take them long to just wipe it out. So you know, if I keep them there, sure, they may get a little more grass, but eventually they're going to wipe that out too. It's just going to be moonscaped. There's going to be excessive nitrogen just killing everything. So that's the importance of moving them. And when we say pasture-raised poultry, when we say, you know, our eggs, pasture-raised eggs, this is what we mean. You know, we have birds out here actively foraging during all their waking hours. So they're never locked in, never locked out. They always, these are their shelters. This is all they have. So that, you know, this is where they roost. This is their shade structures. Here's their nest boxes. Structures get moved daily to spread the manure load. Entire paddock gets moved every few days. Sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. But this is what we mean when we say pasture-raised poultry. And I just think it is vitally important for the consumer to see this, and that way they can literally ask the questions. Ask the questions of your farmer. I mean, it gets frustrating. It gets real frustrating to producers, or to myself as a producer who really puts forth the effort, and the work to ensure, nutrient-dense food that is going to benefit the ecosystem and not harm it. To see these other producers that claim to be regenerative, claim to be pasture-raised or whatnot, and they're not. I mean, it's obvious, because for various reasons. I mean, we know what questions to ask, but there's people out there now. I mean, they're latching on to that regenerative name. I see this one particular ad on Facebook pops up on my reels like every time I open it, and I'm not gonna say the name. I probably should call them out, but I've even asked them questions. I'm like, okay, well, where do you source your regeneratively raised meats? And we source them from hundreds of farms all over. It's like, well, what are some of these farms? I'd like to verify the prices. Oh, we don't have a list of the farms. And it's like, really? So you're working with farms all over the place, and you can't provide a list of them? And I mean, that's what's wrong with the food industry, just a complete lack of transparency. And they won't tell you where it comes from. And then I asked them, I said, how are you verifying that the farms that are supplying your product are implementing regenerative agricultural practices? Crickets, nothing, no response, because they're not, which brings me to something else. And I apologize. Look, I know this is somewhat negative. I try to keep it positive here, but I really just think this is important. It brings me to another quick story I want to tell. And this was, and again, I'm not going to call these people out, man, but there was this one particular page on Facebook, and they had a map, right? So the goal of this page supposedly was to be able to show people regenerative farms all across America. And so I was like, wow, cool. We saw it. I signed up, put in all the information for our farm. We had a little blip on the map, Yonah Mountain Farms. And that was cool. A few people found us, right? And it was probably about a year into it. So we've been on the map for about a year. And then I get an email saying, hey, we hope you've enjoyed being on the map. We now are asking everybody that's on the map to pay $10 to continue to be on the map. And I'm like, whatever. I mean, $10 does nothing, but still, I'm not going to pay it, because I don't really care that much. So we got taken off the map. Well, now that just made me think. I'm like, so they did absolutely nothing to verify that we were implementing regenerative practice. I never spoke to these people, no questions asked. All we did is say, yes, here's our information, and they put us on the map, right? And then the only thing that was required for us to stay on the map was $10. So you got all these people that are sitting here looking at this, that are trusting these people, that now, they go to this map and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we can verify that we're buying, regeneratively raised meats or produce. But the only verification is a $10 check, man. So how many of these people, how many of these farms on here just have latched onto that word? They see it, they see, okay, regenerative ag is taking off. They're at the farmers markets, people are asking about it. Hey, are you doing? And they're like, yeah. I mean, and this is just, I don't know how many is on this map, but they got it boasted, thousands of acres, blah, 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 are being regenerated. Zero zero verification of regenerative practices. A $10 check, a $10 Venmo, and you can be labeled regenerative on this Facebook page that's reaching thousands. So that's why we're doing this, man. I just want to put it out there. You got to know your farmer. This day and age, and I'm not trying to use scare tactics. Look, this is just me. This is just me talking like, you know, I have serious trust issues when it comes to food at this point. And it hadn't always been that way. It really wasn't until I got into this, you know, 6 years ago, until we really started producing food, that I just really realized how screwed it up it all is. And it ain't gonna get any better, in my opinion, and people think that's pessimistic or whatnot. And it is in a way, but I just look at the facts. I just see, you know, the vast majority of people do not even care what they put in their bodies. It is a lot easier and a lot cheaper to raise food in a conventional way. That's why we do it. You know, that's why it's done all over the world, especially here in the United States, is because it's easier and cheaper to raise food in what has become the conventional model. People are not going to, you know, give that up unless the consumer demands it. And even when the consumer demands it, they're just going to lie. You know, they're just going to tell you what you want to hear. So the only way to truly verify is you have to educate yourself. You have to talk to your farmer. You have to know your farmer. You have to visit the farm, you know, whatever it takes. But anyhow, you know, that's why one of the main reasons I'm shooting these videos. I think it's like dramatically important for people to know your farmer, because if you don't, you're going to be deceived. And I'm going to sign out and catch y'all on the next one.